Record. Okay, so here what we want to first do is use a calculator to find the value of each to the nearest 10,000th. Right, what we're going to do here, see where it says sine of 77 degrees, all you're going to do in your calculator is, because it says sine, you're going to press the sine button. Do you all see your sine button? Well, if you're on the graphing calculator, it should be right here, right under the apps button. If you're on the TI-30XIIS, it should be very obvious also where that button is. So you're going to press sine and then 77. You do not need to close the parenthesis if you want to, because you like how it looks. There is a parenthesis there that you can press to close it, but it's not necessary. Then you press enter, and what we end up getting is 0.97437000648. And now I said round to the nearest 10,000th. Right? So when you're rounding, remember the point after the decimal is the tens, hundredths, thousandths, and then what is it? 10,000ths place. So the way we round is we, where are my colors? All right, we want to round the 10,000th place, so we want to round the 3. So you look at the number after the 10,000th place. So you're going to look at that 7, and you're going to ask yourself, if that number after the place that you want to round, if that number is 5 or bigger, you round up. If that number is less than 5, you do not round down. What do? You keep it the same. So what does this end up becoming? This ends up becoming 0.974. Do we round up or keep it the same? Round up. So 0.9744. All right, you all find the tangent of 22 degrees on your own. So you're going to press tan, 22, enter, and then you're going to round to the nearest 10,000th. Okay, so when I press tan 22 into my calculator, that's the decimal I got. We want to round to the nearest 10,000. So remember, we got the tens, the hundredths, the thousandths, the 10,000ths place. And then, so we're rounding that 0. So what are we looking at? We're looking at the 2. This is less than 5. So what does that mean for the 0? Stays the same. So our answer is going to be 0.4040. You need to have that 0 there. When it says to round to a certain place, you must put a number in that place, even if it's a 0. Even if it's a 0, you must put a number in that place to show that, okay, well, here's the 10,000th place. That's the number that's there. Okay, so now I'm giving you what the ratio that the angle makes, and I'm asking you to find the angle that makes the ratio. The ratio I'm giving to you as a decimal, but it is a ratio. So they're saying the tangent of some angle A ends up giving us 2.0503 when we divide that ratio. That's what this is saying, this next part. So there is a way to find the angle. So what we're going to do is we have, let's write this out. We have tangent of A equals 2.0503. Okay, I need to solve for the angle. I need to solve for the angle. But I can't just divide by tangent alone because tangent's always with an angle, right? I can't just divide by tangent by itself. So the only way to get tangent to cancel out is to do something called multiplying by its inverse. And that looks like tan -1. So if I multiply by tan raised to the negative first power, that's called the inverse of tangent. If I do that to the left side, I do it to the right side also. And then these tangents cancel out. So I am left with, where's my marker? Angle A is equal to the inverse of tangent times 2.0503. Now let me show you how to get this onto our calculator. Are we ready? Okay. So, side note, if this were a test, you would need to show me this work. Even though we're going to get the answer on our calculator, I would need you to show me that tangent A equals this, that you multiply by the inverse, and A equals the inverse times this. And this is ultimately what we're putting into our calculator. So the question is, how do I get tan -1 on my calculator? Do you all see above the tangent button written in blue, it says tan -1, the inverse of tangent? Does everybody find that on their calculators? All right, the way we get that is you're going to press the second blue button. You're going to press the second blue button, and then you're going to press tangent, and that's how you get the tan -1. That's how you get the inverse of tangent. Now, what do you think we're going to type in? This whole decimal. So now we're going to type in 2.0503, close your parenthesis, press enter. I'm not going to round to the nearest degree. I want to round to the nearest tenth because that's what your whole test is going to be. Your whole entire test, I'm going to tell you round to the nearest tenth. So let's just practice rounding to the nearest tenth. All right, so what do we get? We get A is equal to 63.999, I don't know how many nines there, 9577, right? If we're rounding to the nearest tenth, do we all agree that's this 9 right here? So then what do we look at? We look at that number after the 9, which is another 9. That's 5 or more. So what does that mean? We have to round up. But what happens when I round 9 up? It's 10. So what does that mean? I'm ultimately having to add 1 to which one? The 63. So what does this become? 64. But because I said round to the nearest tenth, what do I have to show for? 0.0. Because I said round to the nearest tenth, I have to put that 0.0. I have to show the tenth spot. And this is degrees because it is an angle. All right, you all do number 4, round it to the nearest tenth, and then we'll go over it. Amanda? So when you do something and it's inverse, that's what the -1 means, inverse. So like, for example, if you have like, if we're doing like the multiplicative inverse, everything has its inverse in each thing. So if you're talking about the multiplicative inverse of 5 is 1 over 5 because the 5's cancel out. So when you have the inverse of something, it's the thing that makes it cancel out. All right, are we ready? So ultimately, if you're like a minimalist, meaning you want to show the least amount of work possible to get full credit, what would you have to show me in this scenario? You would have to show me z equals cos raised to the negative first power, so the inverse of cosine, times of 0.1219. That's what you would need to show me if you're showing me the least amount of work to get credit. All right. Ultimately, what's happening here? We have cosine of z equals 0.1219. We need to get z by itself, right? I can't divide just by cosine, because what does cosine always have to be with? Or sine or tangent? What do they always have to be with? They have to be with an angle. So I can't just divide away the cosine if it's not accompanied by an angle. But I can cancel it out by multiplying by the inverse of cosine. So now, on both sides, I'm going to do cos raised to the negative first power. That's the inverse of cosine, equals cos to the negative first power inverse of cosine of 1219. All right, these cosines cancel, so then we're left with z is equal to this. Now, that's not our answer. That's just what we're typing into the calculator, right? Somebody tell me, how do I put this into my calculator? How do I get cos to the negative first power into the calculator? Demetri. You got it. And then if we do that, and we're rounding to the nearest, tenth, because we're practicing that for our test. What would this be again? 83.0. All right, now you guys try number 5 again on your own. Try number 5 on your own. All right, what should you have gotten? You should have written down minimum y equals tan inverse of 0.6494. That's what we're typing into our calculator. Second tan 0.6494. Enter, and we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so that is 33.0 degrees. How many people got that? Anybody need to see me do it more? We're good? Okay. So how is this going to work since we've practiced using the calculator? How is this going to help us? All right. So, looking at the first triangle, we want to find the indicated angle. Do you guys all see this little circle with a loop through it? Right here by this angle? That's called theta. Hey, theta is like an x. It's an unknown, but it's used to represent an unknown angle. So theta is just really another variable, but it's usually used to represent an unknown angle. Instead of putting an x for an angle, they'll put theta for an unknown angle. So they want us to find the missing angle. Well, how are we going to find the missing angle? Is there more that I'm missing? Guys, was there another section here? No? Okay. So now we want to find the missing angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at everything in reference to this unknown angle. And I'm going to look at the two sides that they're giving me. And the two sides that they're giving me are 51 and 55. Well, you all tell me, based on everything we were working on last class, is 51 opposite theta, adjacent to theta, or the hypotenuse of theta? This is opposite. 51 is opposite. 55 is opposite, adjacent, or hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. So now we're going to go back to that special word we kept using, SOHCAHTOA. And I'm going to ask myself, well, which trig function, since I have the opposite and I have the hypotenuse, which trig function pairs O and H? You tell me, is it sine, is it cosine, is it tangent that pairs O and H, opposite and hypotenuse? Sine. So now we're going to make an equation. It's sine. Can sine ever stand alone? No, it always has to be of what? An angle. What's our angle? Theta, right? Sine theta equals 51 over 55. Everybody okay with how I got this? Great. So now I'm solving for the angle. I'm solving for theta. In order to solve for the angle, I need to get rid of sine. But am I allowed to just divide sine by itself if it's not with an angle? No, I'm not allowed to divide sine if it's not with an angle, because sine always has to be with an angle. So how am I going to get that sine to cancel? Multiply by its inverse. So we're going to multiply by its inverse. So we're sine -1, sine -1. So these signs cancel, so we get theta is equal to the inverse of sine, and then 51 over 55. I will show you how to type this into your calculator. All right, are you ready? So you all tell me, how do I get sine -1, or the inverse of sine? How do I get the inverse of sine into the calculator? What do I press? Anybody remember? X. Good, we're going to do second sine. When you press second sine, that gives you the inverse of sine on your calculator. Now you're going to put that whole fraction in. How you put that fraction in is type 51 and then the division button. Press that baby division button. And then 55. I'm going to close my parenthesis. So closing my parentheses is above the 9. So close that parenthesis and press enter. And now we're rounding again. I don't want to the nearest degree. I want to the nearest tenth. If I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, what is theta? Theta is, you all tell me, 68.0 degrees. Are we ready for the next one? Okay, so now theta's up here. Can somebody tell me, according to theta, 19 and 27, which types of sides are they? Adjacent, opposite, hypotenuse? You tell me, what are we dealing with? 19 is what? Adjacent. And 27 is the hypotenuse. So we're back to SOHCAHTOA. We have A and we have H. Which trig function pairs A and H? Which trig function pairs A and H? Cosine. So we're going to say cosine, but I can never write cosine by itself. What is this? Cosine of what? Cosine theta. Cosine theta equals 19 over 27. Will, tell me, how am I now going to solve for theta? What am I going to do?
You have to multiply by the
Good. So theta is going to equal cos to the negative first of 19 over 27. So that's the inverse of cosine of 19 over 27. So in our calculators, what are we going to do? Second cos, and you're going to put that whole fraction. How do we put that fraction? 19, baby division sign, 27. I'm going to close my parenthesis and press enter. All right, once again, I'm rounding to the nearest tenth. If I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, what is it? 45.3 degrees. You got it. All right, I want you to do 9 and 10 by yourself. 8 and 9. I want you to do 8 and 9 by yourself, and then we'll go over it. All right, so for the first one, you have opposite and adjacent. So that should have been tan theta equals 8 over 20. So theta equals the inverse of tangent of 8 over 20. So you should have pressed second tan, 8 divided by 20. And that should have been 21.8 degrees. Theta equals 21.8 degrees. How many people got that correct? Excellent. All right, for this next one, number 9, you have opposite and you have hypotenuse. That is sine. So you should have had sine theta equals 52 over 55. We want to solve for theta, so theta equals the inverse of sine of 52 over 55. So you press second sine, 52 division sign, 55, close our parenthesis, and we get theta equals 71.0 degrees. How many people got that? Oh, did I put the wrong number? Oh, I messed it up. All right, that's why we didn't get it. Okay, so let's do this. Second sine, 52 divided by 56. There we go. 68.2. Sorry, how many people got that? Okay, much better. All right, so we learned how to find angles. Now we're going to use trigonometry to find a missing side. So if you look at number 10 right here, I have an angle that's 31 degrees. I have the 10 and I have a missing side that's x. Can I do the Pythagorean theorem? I'm going to say no. We are not able to do the Pythagorean theorem to find x. Can someone tell me how come I'm not able to use the Pythagorean theorem here to find x? Dimitri? Yeah, and how many sides do you need for the Pythagorean theorem? 2. For the Pythagorean theorem, we need 2 sides, obviously, in a right triangle, and you'd find the third side. We don't have that. We only have one side labeled. But all you need for trigonometry is a right triangle, obviously, one angle and one side, and then you can find any of the other missing sides. So everything's in reference to the 31. X is opposite, 10 is adjacent. So what trig function, go back to SOHCAHTOA, which trig function pairs opposite and adjacent? Tangent. So it's never standing alone. Tangent of what am I writing? Tan 31. Mia is on fire today. All right. Tan 31 equals our opposite, which is X, over our adjacent, which is 10. Everybody okay with how I got this equation? Anybody confused? Okay, do we all agree we need to solve for the unknown? Right? The unknown is not an angle, so there's no second tan. There's no tan -1 here. We're just solving for X. We're just solving for the missing side. We're not solving for a missing angle. So I just need to get X all by itself. How do I get X all by itself? Well, 10's being divided. To undo division, what should I do? Multiply. So I'm going to multiply by 10 on both sides. And when I multiply by 10 on both sides, I get X is equal to 10 times the tangent of 31. Once again, we're going to round to the nearest tenth, not the nearest whole number, so we practice this for your test. So how do we type this into our calculator? We're going to press 10. You can press the times button. You don't have to. I will. So times tan. Am I doing tan to the negative first power? Am I doing the inverse? No, just regular tan. And then we press 31. I'm going to close my parenthesis because I like to, and then enter. So X is equal to 6.0. That's how long that side is. You guys try number 11. You all try number 11. All right, what should we have done? We have opposite and hypotenuse, so that's sine. You never write sine, cosine, or tangent by itself. So what am I writing with it? Sine 40 equals X over 19. How do I solve for X? What must I do? Multiply by 19. So X is equal to 19 times the sine of 40. So in your calculators, you're going to do 19 times sine 40. No inverse here, no -1. And we're going to get X is equal to 12.2. All right, the last different type of solving I need to show you. The last different type of solving I need to show you. Did everybody get number 11? Could I move on? All right, let's look at number 12. So here, everything's based on the 74. 19 is adjacent to 74. X is the hypotenuse. So which trig function pairs adjacent and hypotenuse? Cosine. Good. So I'm not going to write cosine by itself. What does it have to be? Cosine which angle? Cosine 74. Good. Equals 19 over X. All right. we need to solve for x. The problem is x is in the denominator. You cannot solve for a variable that's in the denominator. So before I can solve, I need to get x out of the denominator. How am I going to get x out of the denominator? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to multiply both sides by x. When I multiply both sides by x, the x on the right side, they cancel out. So now I have x times cos 74 equals 19. Now I need to solve for x. Now to get x all by itself, this time I need to get rid of the whole cosine 74, not just cos by itself. I need to get rid of the whole cosine 74. So is that okay to divide by the whole cosine 74 since it's with an angle? Absolutely. So now I'm going to divide by cos 74 on both sides. And we are going to get x is equal to 19 over cosine 74. I will show you how to type this into your calculator. Everybody ready to practice into the calculator? All right, great. So we're going to do 19, baby division sign. Do we see -1 anywhere? There's no -1 anywhere. So we're just going to press cos 74. You can close your parenthesis and then enter. So x will equal 68.9. All right, you all do number 13. And then don't shut down after this. There's one problem I'm going to have us add. There's one problem I'm going to have us add. What are they here? Let's keep that conversation out there. So what should we have set up? We should have set up tangent of 38 equals 20 over x. We need to solve for x, but we need to get it out of the denominator. So how do I get it out of the denominator? Multiply by x on both sides. So x times tan 38 equals 20. Now to solve for x, I need to divide by the tangent of 38. So x will equal 20 over the tangent of 38. So you do 20, baby division sign, tan 38, enter 25.6. You know what? I wanted to do a quadrilateral problem. Can somebody remind me next class to start with a quadrilateral problem? All right, we are done for today for the week.